Okay, so I just got a new. Oh, I'm going to show off this room, and that might be terrifying. So I just got a new monitor, and I thought the webcam could record sound, and either it can't, so just oops, oh well, or it can, and I just can't figure out how to get it to play or record. So I don't know, maybe I just did something wrong. Anyway, I want to show you something about your lab. So I'm just using my GoPro to do this. And the first bit deals with just if you have continuous data that you can collect, meaning you have gas that you're producing, or you have a color change that it doesn't necessarily matter. You're not doing anything, like the substrate itself is colored and the color slowly goes away, like you're washing a detergent or something like that. Here's how you would do the lab, or at least some good ideas for it. So the first bit is what you would do is you take some amount of your enzyme, some amount of your substrate at some concentration. I just called it A. And you just let them stick into a vessel, and then you just start measuring it. So whatever you're measuring, just let it go. Got it. Once all of this is done, you move on to the second round, which would be same amount of enzyme, same amount of substrate. Only difference is you switched what the concentration was. And you just keep doing this for however many concentrations you have. I just added 5 more, so total of 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What you would do is take for each of those concentrations, for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, is you would make one of these graphs where you plot time and whatever you're making or whatever you're measuring, so color absorption or amount of CO2 produced or amount of O2 absorbed or whatever. You have your data plotted. You then get a line of best fit. The slope of the line of best fit turns out to be the rate for concentration A if this graph is made from concentration A the first round, or for concentration G if this thing turned out to be the 7th round, whatever. So you go through, you make one of these graphs for every single round that you do. What you could then do is make this plot, the Michaelis-Menten plot, where you take your substrate concentrations, which would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You would take your rate for each of those concentrations. Each of those numbers there came from one of these graphs. And you make your plot. Hooray and hip hip. And like I said, ta-da, you got it. Because you find Vmax, go to 1/2 Vmax, got it. The problem becomes if you can't continuously collect data. So if you're doing something where to actually do the test, meaning if you are testing for glucose, what you have to do to test for glucose is you take your solution that you think has glucose, you add Benedict's solution to it, then you have to heat it up. Well, that's obviously going to interfere with the reaction, so we can't do things in that manner. If you're testing for starch, that's usually done with iodine, and iodine may or may not interfere with the function of the enzymes that destroy starch. So we need to have an alternative plan. And that would be this one. So what you're going to do is make a big vat of enzyme, of X milliliters of enzyme and Y milliliters of the substrate at concentration A, your first round. This is going to be a lot. It's why I made that to look like a flask, or probably a beaker, as opposed to this one just being like a microcentrifuge tube. What you're going to then do, or what you would do, is take a little portion of this and test it. Test it for glucose, test it for starch, test it for lipids, whatever you're going to test it for. Well, this is going through time. So it's sitting there for like 2 minutes or whatever. But while it's sitting there, you're testing out the first sample that you took out. Then after a certain amount of time, you take out another sample. And then you do the test. You repeat the test. Just it's now at some time Q, whatever Q is. And while you're performing the second test, it's aging, it's continuing to react. Then you take out another sample. And then you get another value. And while it's sitting, and you keep doing this, meaning you keep having this stock solution or this reaction vessel, and you just keep pulling liquid out. As soon as you pull the liquid out, you run the test. While it sits, then, oh, it's been another minute. Pull another volume of liquid out, run the test. Oh, it's been another minute. Pull another volume of liquid out, run the test. Oh, it's been another minute. Pull the volume of liquid out, run the test. And what you'll eventually do is you will hand create this graph, because you are choosing the times and whatever you're measuring, whatever that turns out to be, get a line of best fit, slope equals the rate, do this for every single concentration, and boom, you make that graph. The catch becomes, if you're doing that second option, you need to multitask. Meaning, if you have 10 people in your group, there's no group that big, but if you had 10 people in the group, every single one of you needs to be doing one of those tests. There's no reason why one person is doing everything, because it's too much work. You need to divide and conquer. If you are doing the first version where you can continuously measure, well, that's easy enough. So that one you don't need to freak out and have to divide as much. That one, you need to just be smarter about what you're doing. I'm going to probably be less forgiving of those people because you don't have to work as hard. But if you're measuring stuff like starch or iodine or glucose, or not iodine, but glucose or lipids or protein, that one's going to take a little bit longer. So those are your labs, or at least some hints. I have no clue how long this is going to take to upload to YouTube, but we'll try.